Dynamic area battles, Overcharge, and OverDrive attacks are all brand new features added to Dragon Ball Legends as a part of Part 2 of the 7th anniversary. Dynamic area battles gives you the option between fighting in the air and on the ground. Overcharge allows you to charge past 100 ki while also canceling all enemy tap actions and allowing you to use all your arts cards for free until that gauge runs out. And Overdrive attacks function akin to Rising Rush while also giving you the option to deal extra damage and restore your health. All of these are completely brand new ways of experiencing battles in Dragon Ball Legends. And because of that, I asked you guys this question on Twitter. So I asked, Dragon Ball Legends community, talk to me. Now that dynamic area battles and Overcharge, Overdrive Attack have been added in the game for over a week, what are your positive and negative thoughts on the new mechanics? Might use this for a video. So today we're going to go through a lot of the responses because seeing that these are new ways to play the game, I really do want to know how you guys feel about it. Tekjita said, I think these mechanics are a great addition to the game overall. It makes Legends feel more dynamic, hence the name, and allows for more strategy in play. My only issues are the timing of the release should have been in Part 1, and the poor optimization, frame drops, crashing. Okay, so I think that's actually like a really good place to start. So starting with the first part of what they're talking about, I completely agree. It's added a completely new element on how you approach battles in Legends because, you know, we've had, for the most part, the same type of battle system in the game. You know, we stayed in the air, you know, we had just units fight each other up there and whatnot. We had some things that changed, like every now and then, like, you know, when we got tackles added, you know, quick attack and all that stuff. Like, there's been changes, but these changes are a lot more major because of what they're capable of doing. Like, for example, if you're fighting in the air, you can actually do a tackle or a quick attack to knock your opponent down to the ground, right? And in doing so, you deal extra damage because you have the initial tackle or, you know, quick attack, and then the smackdown, and then when they actually like crash into the ground, all that deals damage. So that's a way for you to try to put pressure on your opponent to potentially stop playing defensively. But also, specifically with overcharging, when you overcharge, you're able to blast past unit gauges. So characters that would normally be able to dodge those, like actually the greatest example would be every version of UI Goku. That unit gauge allows them to dodge darn near everything. But when you overcharge and then you dash in and attack, you blast right past that gauge and you're able to follow up with a combo. That's a completely new strategy to get around that gauge that every character in the game has. Because before that, the only character that was really able to get around that type of gauge was transforming Vegito Blue, who we just got during the Legends Festival last year. So now, technically every character can get around that mechanic if they are able to land that hit, because of course they can just dodge and then you're kind of wide open. It's a long animation. So there is that. It's really cool with what that does. And there's more to talk about, which we'll probably get into later on. But the other thing that I do want to talk about is the timing of the release and the poor optimization. So I do believe that Part 1 could have been better, for sure. I think a lot of us think Part 1 could have been better. The unit choices were not bad. It's just that all we got were new units and that was it. And it's the 7th anniversary. They hyped up this anniversary a lot. So we were expecting like some craziness. And for Part 1, we didn't really get that. So that's really unfortunate. If they did add this during Part 1, I think it probably would have been a lot more well received because we would have had the brand new units for, you know, Part 1 of the anniversary alongside a completely brand new way to experience battles. So again, I think that they also should have released this during Part 1, and it kind of shows leading up to their next point because even though the dynamic area battles have been implemented, it's actually not well optimized at all because it is starting to have frame drops with a lot of people playing the game and experiencing, you know, that new way to play online. So I'm sure that they'll be able to like revise things and like fix it so it's a bit more optimized. This is the very first time that they're really changing up the battle system this heavily. But as of right now, it is poorly optimized. There are frame drops when you do dynamic area battles. So here's hoping that in the future, they start patching it so that way it runs much smoother than it does now. OGB Astro said, it definitely makes the game more cinematic and appealing. The new death animations look similar to the ones from Dragon Ball FighterZ as well. Overall, I'd say the anniversary has been great so far. Can't wait for them to cook with Part 3. I think that's actually something that not a lot of people have been talking about because, okay, to be fair, since Dragon Ball Legends has released, we've only ever fought in the air, right? So we're used to seeing everything happening in the air, quite literally everything, right? Especially the death animations just sends you to like, you know, the Shadow Realm, right? But now with you fighting on the ground, we have new animations for when you knock out opponents, right? You have moments where you'll knock them into like a building or a land formation, or if you just knock them out regularly, they'll just like tumble or like whatever the case may be, right? It's really, really cool to see the different ways of you knocking enemies out. So it's not just like the generic way of just sending them to the next continent, you know what I mean? So it's cool to see like a new visual experience with how you fight in the game and how you knock enemies out. And not only that, seeing that fighting on the ground is like a completely new thing in Legends, even though in technicality we're slightly floating above the ground. A lot of animations actually look better on the ground than they do in the air. Like one that pops to mind is LF Bardock, like the transforming like Super Saiyan Bardock for his LF anyway. It looks really, really good on the ground, like super good, because remember in that special, Bardock did all of that on the ground first and then went ballistic on Chilled before he threw him into the air and then knocked him out, right? Or wiped him out is what I should say. Another one that I remember is Revival Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, right? The LF unit, the purple unit from the BoJack movie, because when he, you know, turned Super Saiyan 2 in that movie, he did all of that on the ground. So seeing that actually happen in game looks really, really nice. And there's plenty of examples of old animations that look better in the game now because of the fact that you can actually experience them on the ground. I think even some Ultra intros look really good on the ground as well. So just knowing that dynamic area battles kind of added a new visual experience for older animations is cool. And also it could give us a potential opportunity of seeing new animations take advantage of dynamic area battles to give us a really cool intro, LF, revival animation, or whatever the case may be. Like, we don't know, but what I do know is dynamic area battles have made some animations look good, and I'm looking forward to see how they utilize all of that for newer animations going forward. Anime Gamer 16 said, "I love these mechanics. It's just that at times, the game would force quit or crash because of it. Hope that they fix this issue because even though the mechanics are fun, it won't be for me if these issues still persist." I think that's actually a very valid point, and apparently a lot of people have been telling me this too on YouTube especially, because I've noticed a lot of people were randomly just DCing in the midst of battle. I'm pretty sure some of those DCs are people just quitting because that's just how it is, but it's been pretty frequent, right? And I've heard a lot of people say the game is crashing a lot. Now, it's understandable because when we got the big update on top of getting dynamic area battles added, all of that uses a lot more RAM on your phone. So if it's overloading all of that, it makes sense that it would crash your game. But obviously, part of it might just be a hardware limitation of your phone, in which if that's the case, you probably should just get a new phone or play it on PC, because you can play Dragon Ball Legends on PC through like, I think Google Play Games. You can do that because I remember I tested that out, I think like years ago. But you can try that too. Otherwise, you may have to get a new phone. That's just hardware limitations. Things evolve every single year. But if you do have a powerful phone and somehow it's causing your game to crash, that's definitely an issue. And at that point, that also goes towards the poor optimization, mainly with the dynamic area battles on the ground. Because in the air, it functions for the most part just like everybody's used to, right? It's pretty smooth, things aren't sluggish, whatever the case may be. But when you're on the ground, that's when frame drops happen. That's when like animations like really start slowing down, things get sluggish. It's been rough, right? Again, really cool inclusion, but if things like that are gonna like affect the performance of the game, or even worse, just straight up crash the game to the point where people are potentially not gonna be able to play online because they can't because it keeps crashing, or they get banned for the PvP season, which is possible if you DC in the midst of battle too many times, then they gotta deal with that and quickly, because a lot of people don't deserve to experience that, right? Again, I see the vision. I completely see the vision with what they're going for with dynamic area battles. Really, really cool, but they have got to optimize it. Heroes Tavern 315X said, "I would say that so far the new mechanics are amazing. A great addition to Legends that makes PvP and any other battle in general pretty intense and fun, which is what matters. Despite that, it also helps to punish passive play with the new charge attack. So far, great. So that goes back to something that I was talking about earlier, where with the new Overcharge, you're able to take advantage of that to be able to punish certain units that, or I'll just say players in general, that play passive, or certain units that have unique gauges that would force passive play because of how their unique gauge functions. A great example of that, like I mentioned earlier, is Ultra Instinct Goku. Literally every version of him. Every single one in the game, because that unique gauge allows you to dodge practically everything. Obviously, there's exceptions, but for the most part, it allows you to dodge pretty much everything. But with Overcharge, when you overcharge and then you flick forward to attack, it blasts right past that. And it's not just that unit. Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, whose unique gauge counters pretty much everything as well, you get past that. Same with Majin Vegeta, even though it's for Ki Blast, but you just go and attack him, you can just go through. Now, of course, after you land that attack, you gotta be careful because then their gauge is active again. But it does punish passive play, and that's a good thing. But there is a downside to it. It's a powerful mechanic if you can land it, but if you miss, it's a long animation. So you are wide open to a counterattack if you miss that attack. But if you land it, there's a huge payoff that can come from it. So again, good inclusion. It gives extra viability to literally every single character in the game. But of course, even though it's extremely viable, it can be punished as well. And if you get punished, it's pretty devastating. Even the EV69, okay, look, I love that name, bro. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Like, if I had to pick between Pikachu and Eevee, I'm picking Eevee. Like, that's why I had Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. Eevee's the GOAT. That's the GOAT. Anyway, they said, DABS, Lamau the acronym, on paper seemed really cool, but all that mechanic changed was an extra tap attack and some visual flair. It's definitely nice, but not groundbreaking. Hopefully, no pun intended with that. Overcharge seems a little overtuned right now. It's pretty free to build and is a mini Rising Rush repeatedly. Okay, so I do see where you're coming from with this. I do, but I slightly disagree a little bit, specifically with the dynamic area battles, because I get it, right? Like, it's just, oh, we're in the air, and then, oh, we're now on the ground. I get that. But it's not just your tap actions that cause that transition, right? Whether you tackle or quick attack, like it's more than that. If you land your overdrive attack, that will force a transition, regardless of if you succeed with all three options or if you fail with all three options, it will force a transition. So that's good because the fact that it's making it a bit more of an integral part of the battle experience, apart from just tackling and quick attack, right? But at the same time, I do see where you're coming from because it can be seen as, oh, we're in the air, and then now we're on the ground, and that's kind of it. So I get it. I get where you're coming from, where you say, like, it's not really groundbreaking. I feel as if this is something that will develop over time into something truly special. I think they're starting off with what they have now, and it's gonna build into something special in the future. So we just got to give it time to build up to that point, right? Because it's a really cool addition, and it's a new way to experience the game. So I really do think that they are cooking a little bit with that, but I do see your point. And also, Overcharge. So Overcharge can be seen as a very powerful mechanic because it is. It absolutely is. But at the same time, it's accessible to everybody. So it can't really be deemed as something that is overtuned because, again, if it's the whole concept of if everybody's broken, nobody's broken, right? And if everybody's trash, nobody's trash. So seeing that it's a feature that every unit in the game, old and new, can use, I can't really see that as being like overtuned per se. Now, well, okay, I say that to an extent because, well, actually, no. I was gonna do the comparison with Rising Rush, but that's also completely dependent on certain units that you have on your team. That can be broken, right? Because a really good example, we already experienced battles where people get rushed multiple times, right? But the thing is, that could happen between you having just luck of the draw, or you have a unit on your team that will force draw Dragon Balls, or that will prevent you from getting Dragon Balls, or whatever the case may be. Or heck, even like, for example, the first Sparking Gamma 2 unit that we got in the game, if you're in the battle and there's 10 timer counts left and he's still alive, you get a free Rising Rush. He gets all 7 Dragon Balls instantly. So like things like that, that's like character specific. that can be seen as broken. That's why Rising Rush is such a big issue. Also, it's the strongest mechanic in the game. But with Overcharge and OverDrive Attacks, it's accessible the exact same way to everybody, right? Like there's no difference between one character or another in terms of being able to utilize that feature, right? I don't know if, well, no, because some characters have key like charge speed, like they can cripple and all that stuff. But once you hit 100, which is the requirement anyway, then you're able to build up. And even if you're not at that point, if you get attacked, you build up your overcharge. So there's a bit more like even balance with that mechanic in particular in comparison to something that can be seen as overly unbalanced, even though that is accessible to everybody else, being Rising Rush. So again, do I see Overcharge as overtuned? Not really, because again, everybody's accessible to use that feature, and it's nowhere near in the same realm of, oh, like I can get this like in this particular way and prevent my opponent from being able to get it like Rising Rush is. Because again, you can have your Rising Rush sealed, you can have your Dragon Balls knocked down, you can like get your cards knocked down so you can't get Dragon Ball cards, things of the sort, whereas another teammate can force draw Dragon Ball cards, force draw Dragon Balls, like things of that sort, and get rushes over and over and over again. But if you take damage with Overdrive, or even without Overdrive, it'll build up regardless. So again, I don't think that's overtuned personally. I don't gotta use said, I think Overdrive needs to be changed. In my opinion, if you guess 2 or 3, then you shouldn't take further damage. Ground battles are cool, but on certain maps, even on the newest iPhone, the effects on the ground make it almost unplayable with the frame drops. Okay, in terms of the Overdrive attacks, I actually disagree. Because Rising Rush functions similarly, where even if you guess the rush, you still deal the initial damage that you dealt building up to it, right? And also, when it comes down to Overdrive, remember that the Overdrive attack itself deals damage. That's the point of the feature. The feature itself deals damage. You have the option of dealing extra damage or revitalizing your health. Those are your options. So do I think that they need to change that? No, because that's literally the point of the feature. It's built with that in mind. Now, if I recall correctly, if you guess, you take reduced damage. So that makes sense, because it wouldn't make sense that you're dealing, a move that's supposed to be like a devastating attack, and then you get hit and you're literally getting smacked to the other side of the screen and you take no damage. That doesn't make any sense. Reducing the damage, sure, if you guess it, but if you don't guess it, obviously you deserve to take damage. So that's literally the whole point of the mechanic. So them changing that, I don't think that makes any sense. But again, going back to ground battles, we've talked about that a bit in this video. It's cool, but they have got to optimize that feature a bit more. And again, like people call dynamic area battles ground battles. It's easier that way because you're fighting on the ground. But dynamic area battles, it is a cool feature. It's just not optimized right now. So they really just got to go back and re-optimize it, especially because with part 3, I'm assuming that they're going to come through with something crazy too, right? Hopefully. And if it's going to take advantage of the dynamic area battles, they really need to re-optimize that as much as they can leading up to part 3, because as of right now, frame drops on the ground are pretty bad. Actually, I think one stage in particular that's like really, really bad, and I believe I have video footage of, is the Tournament of Power stage, but it's the Tournament of Power with the green background like in the sky. That spot is rough when it comes down to fighting on the ground, like really, really rough, because it slows the game down to the point where you can actually see how low the frames have dropped. It's pretty bad. So with that, yes, they have got to re-optimize dynamic area battles and make it a bit more optimized to work on the phones that can support it with enough RAM. Because again, if you don't optimize it, it's gonna make it a rough experience for everyone. Is this supposed to be like Rio Roar? Hopefully I said your name right. If I butchered it, I'm so sorry. But I think this is actually a cool one to kind of end off with. So they said, I know it may sound stupid, but the floating air thing is a bit bothering to me at times. Not much though. Only when in Tournament of Power areas, since no one flies in Tournament of Power. I'm sure they'll add it soon. Not much of a complaint, I'm guessing complaints, since everything else is pretty good. Landscape mode win. Okay, so I get that, right? I did talk about that a bit earlier, where even though you're on the ground, you are technically floating in the air just a little bit. And that is kind of throwing some people off, understandably so, right? But at the same time, they would have to make a running animation for every character in the game, which would take an immense amount of time, alongside reworking animations for older characters, which more than likely they probably don't even have the assets to anymore. So again, I see the vision, I see it, but it makes sense as to why they just have them slightly floating above the ground. So that way, since all characters just fly in the air anyway, and it's been that way for 7 years up until part 2 of the 7th anniversary, just let them float slightly above the ground so they're technically on the ground, but we don't have to make a running animation for every single character, including old characters getting completely reworked to add that animation. Now, could they do it? Yes. But will they do it? I don't see that happening at all. Personally speaking, I'm not bothered by it. I'm just glad that we have a new way to experience battles in the game. That's good enough for me personally, but I do understand where people would see room of, or have some sort of complaint or frustration against it. That makes complete sense. And also, landscape mode, listen, bro, iPhone users, I can't really speak for y'all, you know what I'm saying? Because when we got the May update, it technically added the support for landscape mode. It technically did, because beforehand you couldn't do it. Well, I think on iPhone you just straight up couldn't do it at all. On Android, you could do it, but you would have to root your phone. And if I'm not mistaken, doing all that to get that to work on Legends is against the TOS. But now, since that big update dropped in May, you're able to experience the game in landscape mode without rooting your phone. So it's completely safe. It's within TOS 100%. And I finally personally found a way to get my Android phone's inner screen to work with landscape mode. And I released a video on that, I think, a few days ago? So, or at least as this recording is a few days ago. And it's glorious. Oh my goodness, it looks so much better in landscape mode. Y'all, oh wow. If you have an Android phone, you have got to try it out. You have absolutely got to try it out. It looks so good, really, really good. Now, if they allow that type of support on iPhone in the future, then you guys will be able to experience it for yourselves and know how good it looks. And also how the experience is while playing in that mode, because there's so much more room on the screen, it's crazy. And I've actually found myself playing in landscape mode way more now than I did in just the regular portrait mode. So I hope that they do add that feature for iPhone users in the future. But on Android, again, we don't have to root our phone. We don't have to modify or hack our phone in any capacity to get landscape mode to work in Legends, which is within TOS. So it's the only thing I can say is, quite literally, it's peak. So it does seem like people have mixed feelings on the 3 new features that were added to the game, because on one end, people think that it's a great experience because it adds a new element towards the battles that you have in the game. But then there's the other side where they're worried about the optimization issues. Again, both are completely valid reasons to be excited or frustrated with those implementations of those features. But maybe there's something that I might have missed, or maybe something I just straight up didn't even think about. So I do want to know what you guys think about all of this in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on dynamic area battles, Overcharge, and OverDrive attacks? Your positive thoughts and your negative thoughts. Again, let me know in the comment section below. But with that being said, I'm Ndukauba, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.